Princess Hana stood before the massive window of her chambers, watching 3 moons rise over the crystal spires of Vela Prime. Her reflection stared back at her, showing a woman who had lived 247 years yet looked no older than a human in their 20s. Her silver hair fell past her shoulders, and her violet eyes carried the distinctive glow of her people's telepathic abilities. Tomorrow she would marry a human. The thought made her stomach twist. Her mother, the Empress, had made the decision weeks ago. The Kresh Dominion was expanding, consuming worlds at the galaxy's edge like a swarm of locusts. The Velan Empire needed allies, and the Galactic Council had suggested this marriage as a symbol of unity. Hana was the 3rd daughter, not essential to succession, making her the perfect diplomatic offering. She had researched humans extensively since learning of the arrangement. They were such brief creatures living barely a century if they were lucky. Their minds were closed to telepathy, which disturbed her deeply. All her life, Hana had lived surrounded by thoughts and emotions flowing freely among her people. Humans were blank spaces, voids where consciousness should shine. It was unnatural. The human king was named Doyen. He had united Earth's fractured nations into a single kingdom just 5 years ago, following what humans called the Resource Wars. Reports described him as a warrior who personally led troops in battle, unusual for human royalty. He was 34 years old, which meant he was already nearly halfway through his short lifespan. Hana tried to find comfort in knowing this marriage would not last long by Velan standards. A few decades at most, then she would be free to return home. It was a small sacrifice for her people's safety. The journey to Earth took 3 days aboard a Velan diplomatic vessel. Hana brought minimal staff, just her personal aide and 2 guards. Ambassador Jiwan, a human woman with sharp eyes and sharper wit, greeted them at the orbital station. She was surprisingly pleasant, treating Hana with respect but not the excessive formality Hana had expected. "His Majesty is eager to meet you," Jiwan said as they descended to Earth's surface. "Though I should warn you, he's not much for long speeches or ceremony. He prefers action to words." Earth itself surprised Hana. She had expected a primitive world, still healing from its violent past. Instead, she found gleaming cities integrated with vast green spaces, technology that rivaled anything in the Galactic Council, and humans who moved with purpose and energy. They lived such short lives that they seemed determined to fill every moment with activity. The palace was a blend of old and new architecture, combining ancient stone with modern materials. Guards stood at attention as Hana's party entered, and she noticed immediately that she could not read their thoughts. All humans were blanks to her telepathy, but she had hoped proximity might change that. It did not. King Doyen waited in a formal receiving hall. He was tall for a human, with dark hair and darker eyes. He wore simple formal clothes rather than the elaborate robes she had expected. When he bowed to her, the gesture was exact and respectful, showing he had studied Velan customs. "Princess Hana," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "Welcome to Earth. I hope your journey was comfortable." "It was adequate, Your Majesty," Hana replied, studying him carefully. He stood very still, unlike most humans she had observed who seemed unable to stop fidgeting. His eyes met hers without the nervous uncertainty she had seen in other species when facing Velan telepaths. The wedding ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later, giving Hana time to adjust to Earth's slightly heavier gravity and 24-hour rotation. She spent those days exploring the palace and trying to learn more about her future husband. The human staff were friendly but evasive when she asked about Doyen's personal life. Ambassador Jiwan was equally unhelpful, changing subjects whenever Hana's questions became too pointed. Hana noticed other oddities. Entire wings of the palace were restricted, guarded by soldiers who politely but firmly redirected her when she approached. She occasionally saw people in white coats moving through secured corridors, carrying equipment she did not recognize. When she asked about research facilities, she was told they were standard government offices. The wedding day arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine. The ceremony blended human and Velan traditions in ways that were sometimes awkward, but genuine in their attempt at cultural fusion. Hana wore a gown that incorporated both the flowing silver fabrics of her homeworld and the structured elegance humans preferred. Doyen wore formal military dress, medals gleaming on his chest. As tradition required, Hana attempted to read his surface thoughts during the ceremony. Every other being present was an open book to her. their emotions ranging from curiosity to joy to political calculation. But Doyen remained a complete void, as blank as empty space. It should not have been possible. Even humans typically showed some flicker, some electromagnetic signature her telepathy could grasp. Doyen showed absolutely nothing. The reception was held in the palace gardens. Hundreds of guests mingled, including diplomats from a dozen galactic species. Hana played her role perfectly, accepting congratulations and making small talk while her mind remained fixed on the mystery of her new husband. Then something happened that changed everything. A small human child, perhaps 6 years old, was running through the gardens when she tripped. A large decorative stone was falling directly toward her head. Hana saw it happening and knew she was too far away to help. She reached out telepathically to warn anyone nearby. Doyen moved. He was standing 20 feet from the child, engaged in conversation with an ambassador. In less than a second, he crossed the distance and caught the stone one-handed, stopping its fall completely. The stone had to weigh at least 50 pounds, yet he held it as easily as a human would hold an apple. His other hand steadied the child, and he smiled at her gently before setting the stone aside. The entire sequence took perhaps 2 seconds. Most guests barely noticed, their attention elsewhere. But Hana had been watching, and she knew what she had seen. No human should be able to move that fast or display that kind of strength. Even enhanced species in the galaxy would have struggled with such reflexes. Doyen met her eyes across the garden. For just a moment, his expression was unreadable, assessing. Then he smiled and returned to his conversation as if nothing unusual had happened. Later that evening, after the guests had departed and the palace had quieted, Hana explored her new quarters. They were connected to Doyen's chambers by a shared sitting room, giving them privacy while maintaining propriety. As she examined the rooms, she noticed a computer terminal left active on a desk. She knew she should not look. It was a violation of trust, especially on their wedding day, but curiosity and growing suspicion drove her forward. The terminal showed a directory of files, most encrypted. One folder was labeled with clearance levels far above what she expected civilian government to use. The folder name made her blood freeze. Project Ascension. Inside was a single accessible file, Subject Prime Status Report. Hana opened it, her hands trembling slightly. The file contained medical data, genetic sequencing, and enhancement protocols that she barely understood. But one thing was crystal clear at the top of every page. Subject Prime Identity, King Doyen. Status, Active Enhancement Ongoing. Projected lifespan, 500+ years. Hana sat back, her mind racing. She had not married a simple human king. She had married something else entirely. Something humanity had created in secret, and now she needed to discover what that meant, not just for her, but for the entire galaxy. Hana did not sleep that night. She sat in the darkness of her chambers, the words from the file burning in her mind. 500 years, enhanced subject prime. Every answer spawned a dozen new questions, each more troubling than the last. When dawn broke over Earth's horizon, she found Doyen in the shared sitting room drinking something that smelled bitter and strong. Coffee, she remembered. Humans were addicted to it. "We need to talk," Hana said, her voice steady despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. Doyen looked at her, and for the first time she saw something other than calm politeness in his expression. It was resignation, perhaps even relief. "You found the file," he said. It was not a question. "I did. And I think you owe me an explanation. What is Project Ascension? What are you?" He set down his cup slowly, buying time to think. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "I'm human, Hana. That's the first thing you need to understand. Whatever else I am, I'm still human." "The file said you would live 500 years. Humans don't live that long." "No, we don't, not naturally." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "What do you know about humanity's position in the Galactic Council?" Hana frowned at the apparent change of subject, but answered, "You joined 80 years ago. You're considered a young species, still learning interstellar politics and technology. That's the polite version. The truth is, most species see us as primitives. Short-lived, weak, barely evolved past our violent origins. We have no natural telepathy, no extended lifespans, no inherent advantages. Every other species had millions of years to develop. We had a few thousand." His hands clenched into fists. 20 years ago, Earth's leaders decided that wasn't acceptable anymore. If we couldn't evolve naturally fast enough, we would evolve artificially. "Project Ascension," Hana breathed. "Yes? They gathered the best scientists from every nation, pooled resources that should have gone to feeding people or building schools, and created a program to enhance humanity beyond our biological limits. He turned to face her. They needed a volunteer, someone to test whether it was even possible. I was a soldier then, fighting in the resource wars. I volunteered because I believed in the goal. I still do. What did they do to you? Everything. Genetic modification at the cellular level, nanomachines in my bloodstream that repair damage and enhance physical performance, neural enhancements that increased my processing speed and memory. They rebuilt me piece by piece over the course of 3 years. His voice remained calm, but Hana could see the weight behind the words. The procedures were experimental. The pain was extraordinary. Several other volunteers died before they perfected the process. Hana felt a chill run through her. And now? Now I'm faster than any baseline human, stronger. I heal from injuries that would kill others. My mind processes information at accelerated rates. I'm resistant to diseases, poisons, and apparently telepathy. He smiled without humor. That last part was an accident. The neural enhancements created unexpected shielding. Your people can't read me because there's too much interference from my own augmentations. How many others like you exist? Classified. But enough. We have an entire military unit, special operatives, key government officials, all enhanced to various degrees. I'm the first, the proof that it could work, which is why they made me king after the resource wars ended. I'm a symbol of what humanity can become. Hana processed this information, her diplomat's mind already seeing the implications. If the Galactic Council knew about this, they would consider it an act of aggression. Creating super soldiers, enhancing your species artificially, it violates at least a dozen treaties and protocols. Which is why it's secret, and why I'm telling you now, because you're my wife and you deserve the truth, but also because I need to know if you're going to report this to your government. The question hung between them, heavy with consequence. Hana thought about her duty to the Velan Empire, to the Galactic Council, to the laws that governed civilized space. Then she thought about the Kresh Dominion consuming worlds, about her people's desperation for allies, about the short-sighted arrogance of species who dismissed humanity simply because they were young. Show me, she said finally. Show me everything. Then I'll decide. Relief flashed across Doyen's face. He nodded and gestured for her to follow. They left the royal chambers and descended through the palace, going deeper than Hana had been allowed before. Guards snapped to attention as they passed, their eyes forward, asking no questions. They entered an elevator that required both biometric scanning and code verification. It dropped for what felt like minutes, taking them far underground. When the doors opened, Hana found herself in a massive facility that stretched beyond her sight. White corridors branched in multiple directions, and the air hummed with the sound of advanced machinery. Welcome to the Ascension Complex, Doyen said. This is where humanity's future is built. An elderly man in a white coat approached them, his face lighting up when he saw Doyen. Your Majesty, we didn't expect you today, and you've brought the princess. Welcome, Your Highness. I'm Dr. Minho, director of this facility. Hana discovered our secret, Doyen explained. I thought it best to show her everything rather than try to explain with words alone. Dr. Minho's expression became serious, but he nodded. Of course. Knowledge shared in good faith. Come, let me show you what we've accomplished. The tour lasted hours. Hana saw medical bays where volunteers underwent enhancement procedures, training facilities where enhanced soldiers practiced combat techniques at speeds that blurred their movements, laboratories where scientists worked on refining the technology, making it safer and more effective. Dr. Minho explained each step, answering her questions with patience and detail. The most shocking revelation came in a secure wing where she met Captain Soman, commander of the Royal Guard. Unlike Doyen, who appeared entirely human, Soman had visible enhancements. Her right arm clearly cybernetic, her eyes glowing faintly with integrated displays. Some of us choose visible modifications, Soman explained when she noticed Hana staring. We're proud of what we've become. His Majesty prefers to appear baseline human for political reasons, but I believe humanity should embrace our evolution openly. Don't you fear what you're becoming? Hana asked. Don't you worry about losing your humanity in pursuit of enhancement? Soman smiled. Princess, being human isn't about having weak bodies or short lifespans. It's about our spirit, our determination to overcome obstacles, our refusal to accept limitations. Enhancement makes us more capable of expressing those qualities, not less. Later, back in the royal chambers, Hana sat in silence while Doyen waited for her judgment. Her mind was overwhelmed with everything she had seen. The scale of the project, the resources devoted to it, the implications for galactic politics, all of it swirled in her thoughts. "Why tell me all of this?" she finally asked. "You could have kept it secret from me. I never would have discovered the full truth on my own." "Because I don't want our marriage to be built on lies," Doyen said simply. "And because the threat we face from the Kresh Dominion is real and growing. My people need allies who understand what we're capable of, not allies operating on false assumptions about human weakness." "You want me to help you?" Hana realized. "I want us to help each other. The Velen Empire has centuries of diplomatic experience and powerful telepathic abilities. Humanity has determination and technology. Together we might actually stop the Kresh before they consume half the galaxy." Hana stood and walked to where Doyen sat. She studied his face, trying to see past the human features to the enhanced being beneath. But all she saw was a man carrying an enormous burden, trying to save his species the only way he knew how. "I won't report this to the Council," she said. "Not yet. But if humanity's enhancements become a threat to galactic peace, I will speak out. Are we clear?" "Perfectly clear." "Good. Now we need to prepare for the Galactic Council emergency session next week. If we're going to present a united front against the Kresh, we need to actually trust each other." Doyen smiled, genuine warmth reaching his eyes for the first time since she had met him. "I think that can be arranged." 3 days later, the trust between them was tested in fire. They were traveling to the Council station aboard a diplomatic vessel when alarms shrieked through the ship. Kresh fighters had ambushed them, emerging from a previously undetected wormhole. The ship's shields held, but barely. "Get the princess to the escape pods," Captain Soman shouted, her enhanced reflexes already moving her toward the weapons lockers. "No," Hana said firmly. "I stay and fight." What happened next would be recorded in every galactic newsfeed and debated in council chambers for months. Doyen and his enhanced guards defended the ship against overwhelming odds, their movements too fast for normal perception, their strength tearing through Kresh boarding troops. And in the center of the battle, Hana used her telepathic abilities to coordinate defensive efforts and anticipate enemy movements. By the time reinforcements arrived, the Kresh attackers were defeated. But the galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity had created enhanced warriors, and they were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Hana and Doyen entered. Every species represented, from the towering silicon-based Corians to the small aquatic Delphi, turned to watch them. The air felt heavy with tension and barely contained hostility. Hana could read the thoughts of most beings present. Fear dominated their minds. Fear of what humanity had become. Fear of what they might become next. Several ambassadors were already composing messages demanding humanity's immediate expulsion from the council. Others were discussing military action. Ambassador Jiwan walked beside them, her expression carefully neutral. But Hana had learned to read human body language over the past weeks. Jiwan was worried. Very worried. "The session will begin shortly," Jiwan whispered. "We have perhaps 12 hours to change minds before they vote on sanctions. After that assassination attempt was broadcast across every news network, the damage might already be permanent." The session opened with a formal greeting from the council speaker, a Valen elder named Yuna, who happened to be Hana's great-aunt. Despite their family connection, Yuna's face showed no favoritism as she called the emergency session to order. "We are here to discuss the revelations concerning humanity's enhancement program," Yuna said, her telepathic voice reaching every mind in the chamber simultaneously. "King Doyen of Earth, you stand accused of violating the natural evolution accords, creating weapons of war disguised as people, and threatening the stability of galactic peace. How do you answer these charges?" Doyen stood, and Hana noticed every guard in the room tense slightly. They were afraid of him now, afraid of what he could do. He spoke clearly, his voice carrying despite the chamber's vast size. "I answer that humanity has violated no laws. The natural evolution accords apply to genetic manipulation of non-consenting populations. Every enhanced human volunteered freely and was fully informed of the risks. We have not created weapons. We have elevated our species to compete fairly with those who had millions of years of evolutionary advantage." Fairly, The voice belonged to Hive Lord Tarek, representative of the Kresh Dominion. He was massive, covered in chitinous armor, speaking through a biomechanical translator. You create soldiers who can tear through hull plating with their bare hands and call it fair? You give yourself lifespans that match our own and call it equal? This is not evolution. This is an arms race. You would know about arms races, Doyen replied coldly. Your dominion has conquered 17 systems in the past year alone. Millions dead. Entire civilizations consumed by your expansion. Yet you dare lecture us about threatening galactic peace. Tarek's mandibles clicked in what might have been anger or amusement. We expand because we must. Our biology demands it. But humans, you choose this path out of ambition and arrogance. That makes you far more dangerous. The chamber erupted in arguments. Multiple species spoke at once, accusations and defenses flying. Hana felt the telepathic chaos of overlapping thoughts, each species advocating for their own interests. The Corians wanted humanity quarantined. The Delphi suggested destroying Earth's enhancement facilities. Several smaller species called for calm and investigation. Hana stood, and her telepathic presence cut through the noise like a blade. Everyone felt her command for silence, and the chamber quieted. If I may speak, she said formally. I am Princess Hana of Vela, now Queen of Earth through marriage. I have unique perspective on this situation. Yuna nodded permission, though her expression remained unreadable. My people expected me to denounce humanity when their enhancements were revealed, Hana continued. They expected me to support sanctions, perhaps even military action. But I have spent weeks living among humans, studying their culture, understanding their motivations. She took a breath, knowing her next words would change everything, and I believe they deserve not punishment but respect. The chamber exploded in reactions. Hana felt waves of shock and betrayal from her own people, satisfaction from the humans, calculation from neutral parties. She pushed forward, amplifying her telepathic broadcast so every being present felt the sincerity behind her words. Consider what humanity faced. They joined our council as the weakest species, constantly dismissed and underestimated. They live brief lives, barely long enough to master their own crafts before death claims them. They have no natural telepathy, no ability to fly, no resistance to radiation or extreme temperatures. Every other species had advantages granted by millions of years of evolution. Humanity had nothing but determination. She gestured to Doyen. So they did what humans always do when faced with impossible obstacles. They refused to accept their limitations. They used their one advantage, their innovative minds, to elevate themselves. Is that so different from how other species use their natural gifts? It is completely different, shouted a Corian representative. Natural evolution is guided by environmental pressures over millions of years. Artificial enhancement is uncontrolled, unpredictable, dangerous. Is it? Hana challenged. From what I have seen, humanity's enhancement program is remarkably controlled. Volunteers are carefully screened. Procedures are refined continuously. Safety protocols exceed anything I have witnessed in other industrial processes across the galaxy. They are not creating monsters. They are creating equals. Elder Yuna spoke, her telepathic voice grave. Princess Hana, there is something you should know. Something the Council has kept secret for 3,000 years. The chamber fell silent. Even Tarek seemed to lean forward, interested. Humanity is not the first species to attempt rapid self-enhancement, Yuna continued. Long ago, before the Council existed, a species called the predecessors followed a similar path. They succeeded in creating beings of immense power. Those beings eventually turned on each other, fighting a war that destroyed their homeworld and nearly shattered a dozen neighboring systems. The Galactic Council was formed specifically to prevent such catastrophes from repeating. Hana felt ice forming in her stomach. She looked at Doyen and saw shock on his face. He had not known this either. The predecessors serve as a warning, Yuna said. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. How can we be certain humanity will not follow the same path? Before anyone could answer, alarms shrieked through the station. Emergency lights flashed and automated voices announced hull breaches in multiple sections. On the viewing screens, Kresh warships appeared, emerging from wormholes surrounding the station. This is our answer to your debate, Tarek's voice boomed. The Kresh Dominion does not negotiate with those who would oppose our expansion. We will take what we need, and none of you are strong enough to stop us. Chaos erupted as diplomats scrambled for escape routes. The station's defensive shields activated, but Kresh weapons were already battering them. Hana felt Doyen's hand on her arm, firm but gentle. Stay close to me, he said. Captain Somin and her team are already moving to defensive positions. We need to evacuate, Jiwon said urgently, appearing beside them. The shields won't hold for long. No, Hana said, her voice cutting through the panic. If we run now, the council will fracture. Species will flee to their homeworlds and the Kresh will pick them off one by one. We need to show unified resistance here now. Doyen smiled at her, fierce and proud. You think like a warrior queen, I agree. Jiwon, coordinate with station security. Hana, can you use your telepathy to organize the defense? Yes, but I'll need help. Foe species here are not military trained. Then use the humans. We know how to fight. What followed was the most intense hour of Hana's life. She opened her mind fully, connecting with every telepathic species present while Doyen coordinated the enhanced human forces. She became the communications hub, relaying enemy positions, coordinating defensive efforts, keeping panic at bay through sheer force of will. Enhanced humans fought alongside Korean warriors, their combined strength holding key corridors. Delphi technicians worked with human engineers to boost the shields beyond normal limits. Even species that had been calling for Earth's destruction minutes ago now fought beside humans against the common threat. The Kresh boarding parties were vicious, their weapons designed to cause maximum damage. But they had expected a panicked, disorganized defense. Instead, they faced a united force that adapted to their tactics with frightening speed. Hana felt Doyen fighting at the front lines, his enhanced speed and strength buying time for civilians to evacuate to secure areas. She felt Captain Somin leading a counter-assault, her visible enhancements inspiring human and non-human soldiers alike. She felt the fear and determination of hundreds of beings who had never expected to fight for their lives in what was supposed to be neutral diplomatic territory, and she felt the moment when the station's shields began to fail. The energy drain was too much, the attacks too concentrated. They had minutes, perhaps, before the Kresh breached the main chamber. Doyen, she sent telepathically, pushing her thoughts toward where she sensed his presence. The shields are failing. We need to evacuate now or we'll all die. His response came back immediately, though she could not truly hear his thoughts. Somehow, over the weeks of living together, she had learned to interpret the faint electromagnetic patterns his enhanced brain produced. It was not telepathy, but it was communication. The evacuation proceeded in controlled chaos. Hana coordinated through her telepathic link, guiding civilians to escape vessels while Doyen and the enhanced forces held the Kresh at bay. Every few minutes she felt another explosion rock the station, each one closer than the last. Then she felt something terrible through her telepathic senses. Pain, sharp and overwhelming from the direction where Doyen was fighting. His electromagnetic signature, that faint pattern she had learned to recognize, flickered and nearly vanished. No, she whispered. Without thinking, she ran toward the damaged section, ignoring Jiwon's shouts to stop. She burst through a sealed door using her security clearance and found a nightmare. Bodies littered the corridor, both Kresh and human. The walls were scorched and torn, and in the center of the destruction, Doyen lay motionless, his body covered in wounds that would have killed any baseline human instantly. Captain Somin crouched beside him, her cybernetic arm torn away, her face streaked with blood. He's alive, Somin said, her voice tight with pain. Barely. His regeneration is working, but he took too much damage. We need to get him to a medical pod now. Together, they dragged Doyen back through the corridors. Hana felt her telepathic abilities straining as she maintained coordination across the station, while simultaneously trying to sense if Doyen's life force was fading. The electromagnetic patterns from his enhanced brain were erratic, barely there. They reached the medical bay where Dr. Minho had set up emergency equipment. The elderly scientist took one look at Doyen and his face went pale. Get him in the pod now! Minho's hands flew over controls. His nanomachines are overwhelmed. Without intervention, the regeneration process will consume itself trying to repair damage faster than it can sustain. They sealed Doyen in the medical pod, and Hana watched helplessly as machines worked to save his life. All around her, the battle continued. She could feel through her telepathic senses that the Kresh were pushing forward, that human casualties were mounting, that the station would not hold much longer. You need to take command, Captain Somin said, her remaining hand gripping Hana's shoulder. His Majesty bought us time, but someone needs to use it. The humans will follow you. You're the queen. Hana looked at the enhanced soldier, saw the trust in her eyes despite the pain of her injuries, and felt something shift inside her. She was not just a villain princess married off for political convenience. She was a leader, and people needed her. "Get yourself treated," Hana ordered. "Then gather every combat-capable human. We're not retreating. We're counterattacking." Over the next hour, Hana became something no one had expected. She combined Velan telepathic coordination with human tactical aggression, creating a defense strategy that used each species' strengths. The Corians held choke points with their physical power. The Delphi sabotaged Kresh equipment through their technical expertise. And the humans, enhanced and baseline alike, struck at weak points with surgical precision. Then Admiral Hyejin arrived and everything changed. Hana felt the new presence before she saw it. Powerful ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel around the station. At first she thought they were more Kresh reinforcements. Then she received a communication on human military channels. "This is Admiral Hyejin of the Earth Defense Fleet. We detected the attack on the Council Station and are moving to assist. Princess Hana, please respond." "Admiral, this is Queen Hana. We are holding but barely. Where did this fleet come from? I thought Earth only had a few dozen warships." There was a pause, then Hyejin's voice returned, tinged with what might have been amusement. "That's what we wanted everyone to think, Your Highness. But humanity has been preparing for the day when the galaxy would need us. We have 300 warships, all equipped with enhanced technology and crewed by augmented personnel. Today we stop hiding." The Earth fleet engaged the Kresh with devastating effectiveness. Their weapons cut through Kresh shields like they were paper. Their ships moved with precision that suggested enhanced pilots at the controls. Within 20 minutes, the Kresh assault force was either destroyed or fleeing. But the victory felt hollow to Hana as she stood by Doyen's medical pod, watching displays that showed his condition slowly stabilizing but still critical. Dr. Minho worked alongside other doctors, human and alien, all trying to save the king who had sacrificed himself for them. In the aftermath, as the station began emergency repairs, Hana received a secure communication. The source was surprising. It came from within the Kresh fleet itself, from ships that had not fled with the others. "This is the chorus," the message said, the voice strange and layered as if many beings spoke as one. "We are those within the Kresh who wish to be free. Hive Lord Tarak controls us through forced neural connection. We watched your defense, saw how different species work together. We want what you have. We want choice." Hana felt hope spark despite her exhaustion. "How many of you are there?" "Millions. Perhaps more. But we cannot break free alone. Tarek's control is absolute through biological connections we cannot sever. We need help, and we need it before he purges us for this communication." An idea began forming in Hana's mind. Dangerous, but potentially revolutionary. "I can enter the Kresh hive mind with my telepathy. If I can sever Tarek's control at the source, you could be free." "It would likely kill you," the chorus warned. "No individual mind has ever survived contact with our collective consciousness. We are billions of thoughts screaming together. You would be destroyed." "Not if I have help." Hana looked at the enhanced humans around her, at the technology humanity had created. "What if we amplify my telepathic abilities using human enhancement technology? Could that work?" Dr. Minho, overhearing the conversation, looked up from Doyen's medical pod. "Theoretically, yes. We've been studying telepathic species for years, trying to understand how to give humans similar abilities. We haven't succeeded, but we've learned a lot about how telepathy functions. We could build an amplification device." "How long?" 2 days. Maybe 3. "But Your Highness, the neural feedback could burn out your telepathic centers completely. You might lose your abilities permanently or worse. Suffer brain damage that not even our technology could repair." Hana thought about her people, about the Valens who defined themselves by their telepathic connection to each other. Losing that would mean losing part of what made her Valen. But she thought about the chorus, millions of beings trapped in slavery to Tarek's will. She thought about the continuing threat of Kresh expansion. And she thought about Doyen, lying unconscious in a medical pod because he had chosen sacrifice over safety. "Build the device," she ordered. "We're going to free the chorus, and we're going to do it before Tarek can recover from this defeat." 3 days later, Doyen woke to find Hana sitting beside his medical pod. His body ached everywhere, but he was alive and healing. The first thing he saw was her face, and relief washed over him. "You made it," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "So did you," she replied, taking his hand. "Your regeneration abilities are remarkable. Dr. Minho said you were 90% of the way to death." "I've been closer. Once or twice, he tried to sit up and winced. What did I miss? Hana told him everything. About Admiral Hyejin's fleet, about the chorus, about her plan to free them. As she explained, she watched his expression change from relief to concern to adamant refusal. Absolutely not, he said, his voice gaining strength as anger fueled him. You're talking about risking your life, your mind, for people we don't even know if we can trust. They're slaves, Doyen, enslaved by their own biology and Tarek's control. How can we call ourselves civilized if we don't at least try to help them? By staying alive, by not sacrificing yourself for an impossible mission. He grabbed her hand with both of his and she felt the strength in his grip even weakened as he was. I just got you. I'm not losing you. And I thought I lost you 3 days ago, Hana said softly. I felt you nearly die through my telepathy, and it was the worst moment of my life. But you made the choice to risk yourself because it was right. Now I'm making the same choice. That's different. How? Because you're the enhanced warrior and I'm just the telepathic princess? Because you're allowed to be heroic but I'm supposed to stay safe? She pulled her hand free, her eyes flashing with anger. I am your equal partner in this marriage and in this war. You don't get to make decisions about what risks I can take. They argued for an hour, neither willing to back down. Finally, exhausted and frustrated, Doyen played his final card. I love you, he said quietly. I didn't expect to. This was supposed to be a political marriage, nothing more. But somewhere between your discovering my secret and fighting beside me on this station, I fell in love with you, and I can't lose you. I won't. Hana felt tears threatening. I love you too, which is why you need to understand that I have to do this. Not just for the chorus, but because it's who I am. I'm not just your wife. I'm a queen, a diplomat, a telepath, and this is something only I can do. Doyen stared at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Then I'm coming with you. Into the hive mind, into the neural amplification, all of it. If you're risking your mind, I'm risking mine beside you. Your enhancements make you resistant to telepathy. You can't enter the hive mind. The moment Hana's amplified telepathy touched the Kresh hive mind, she understood why no individual consciousness had ever survived contact. It was not like joining a conversation. It was like being thrown into an ocean during a hurricane. Billions of thoughts crashing over her simultaneously, each one screaming for attention, each one fighting against the others and against Tarek's crushing control. She would have been swept away instantly if not for Doyen. His enhanced mind, modified to allow limited telepathic connection, served as an anchor. He could not survive in the hive mind alone, but he could hold on to Hana while she navigated the chaos. Through the screaming multitude, she sensed the chorus, those millions of Kresh who had maintained enough individual thought to resist. They recognized her presence and flowed toward her like iron filings to a magnet. With their help, she began to understand the structure of the hive mind, the neural pathways that kept billions of beings enslaved to one will. At the center of it all was Hive Lord Tarek, his consciousness vast and terrible. He sensed her intrusion immediately. You dare enter my domain? His thought voice boomed through the hive mind, causing ripples of pain across billions of connected beings. Foolish Valen, I will consume your mind and use your telepathic abilities to enslave your entire species. He tried to overwhelm her with sheer mental force, pressing down with the weight of his control. But Hana had something he did not expect. She had Doyen's anchor, the chorus's guidance, and most importantly, she had experienced what it meant to be an individual, to make choices, to be free. Those concepts were foreign to Tarek, weaknesses in his understanding. She showed him what she had learned from humans. She showed him Doyen's choice to enhance himself despite pain and risk. She showed him the council species choosing to fight together despite their differences. She showed him that strength came not from forcing unity, but from individuals choosing to cooperate. The concepts burned through the hive mind like wildfire. Billions of Kresh had never conceived of choice before. The idea was revolutionary, terrifying, and irresistible. Tarek's control began to fracture as individual Kresh started questioning why they followed him, why they expanded, why they consumed worlds. No, Tarek roared, trying to reassert control. You are Kresh. You exist to serve the hive. Individual thought is chaos. Individual thought is freedom, Hana replied, her telepathic voice amplified by both the device and the chorus supporting her. And you cannot stop it once the idea takes root. She found the central neural pathway, the connection that allowed Tarek to control all others. With the chorus's help and Doyun's anchoring presence keeping her from being swept away, she severed it. The connection snapped with a psychic shockwave that rippled across the entire Kresh dominion. The feedback was catastrophic. Hana felt her own telepathic centers burning, neural pathways overloading from the strain. She tried to scream but had no voice in the mental realm. She felt Doyun pulling her back, dragging her consciousness away from the collapsing hive mind. When she woke, she was back in her body, lying on the floor of the amplification chamber. Doyun held her, his face wet with tears, calling her name. Dr. Minho and other medical staff surrounded them. "She's awake," Minho said, relief obvious in his voice. "But we need to run scans immediately." The scans confirmed what Hana already knew. Her telepathic abilities were damaged, reduced to perhaps 10% of their original strength. She could still sense strong emotions nearby, could still project thoughts with effort, but the vast range and power she had once possessed were gone. For a Valen, it was like losing a primary sense. It should have been devastating. But as Hana lay in the medical bay, Doyun's hand in hers, she felt something unexpected. Peace. Quiet. For the first time in her 247 years of life, her mind was truly her own, not constantly bombarded by the thoughts and emotions of everyone around her. "How do you feel?" Doyun asked, his voice gentle. "Different," she said honestly. "Smaller, maybe, but also more focused." "Is this what it's like for you?" "Just your own thoughts," he smiled. "Welcome to being human. It's not so bad once you get used to it." Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Kresh Dominion was fracturing. Individual ships were breaking away from the fleet, their crews experiencing independent thought for the first time. Some fled to remote systems, overwhelmed by sudden freedom. Others reached out to the Galactic Council, seeking help understanding what had happened to them. And Hive Lord Tarek, his control shattered, was requesting to meet with Hana and Doyun. The request surprised everyone. After everything he had done, after the attack on the Council Station and centuries of expansion, he was asking for negotiation. The meeting took place aboard Admiral Hyejin's flagship, with heavy security and multiple species present as witnesses. Tarek arrived alone, and Hana was shocked by how different he seemed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like confusion. "I do not understand what I am now," Tarek said through his translator. "For 300 years I was the voice of billions, their thoughts flowing through me as one unified purpose. Now I am just myself. It is terrifying." "It's called individuality," Doyun said, "and yes, it can be terrifying. But it's also the foundation of freedom." "Freedom," Tarek repeated the word like he was tasting something new. "We expanded because we believed it was our nature, our purpose. But now I question everything. Why did we consume worlds? Why did we enslave our own people through forced connection?" He looked at Hana with eyes that no longer glowed with hive mind connection. "What you did to us, breaking our unity, I should hate you for it. But instead I feel grateful. Is that normal?" "Very normal," Hana said gently, still adjusting to processing information without full telepathic input. She had to rely on body language and tone the way humans did. "You're experiencing the confusion that comes with making your own choices. It gets easier. My people are scattered, confused, scared. Many are dying because they do not know how to function as individuals. We need help." Tarek's massive form seemed to shrink as he spoke. "I am asking, not demanding. We attacked you. We tried to kill you. You have every right to leave us to our chaos, but I am asking anyway." Doyun looked at Hana, and she saw the question in his eyes. This was a decision they needed to make together. She thought about justice and mercy, about cycles of violence and chances for redemption. She thought about how humanity had been judged for trying to rise above their limitations, and how that judgment had almost led to their isolation or destruction. "We'll help," Hana said. "But there are conditions. The Kresh Dominion must disband. Your military must be decommissioned, and you must join the Galactic Council not as conquerors, but as equals seeking to learn how to coexist with other species." "We accept," Tarek said immediately. "We accept everything. We just want to survive, to understand what we are now." The agreement was formalized over the following weeks. It became known as the New Covenant, a complete restructuring of galactic politics. The Kresh would receive aid in transitioning to individual consciousness, with Velen telepaths and human psychologists working together to help them adapt. In exchange, Creche technology and resources would be shared with the Council. But the most significant change was in humanity's status. After seeing the Earth fleet in action, after watching Doyun and the enhanced humans defend the Council station, after witnessing what humanity was willing to sacrifice for others, the galaxy could no longer dismiss them as primitive. The enhancement program, once considered a threat, was now viewed as humanity's contribution to galactic security. Other species began requesting access to enhancement technology. The Corians wanted to combine their natural strength with human augmentation. The Delphi sought to enhance their cognitive processing. Even the Valens, proud of their natural telepathy, inquired about neural enhancements that might expand their abilities. Doyen and his advisors created the Ascension Accords, a framework that allowed controlled, ethical enhancement for any species that wanted it. Dr. Minho led the training program, teaching alien scientists the procedures while emphasizing the safeguards humanity had learned through hard experience. 6 months after the battle at the Council Station, Hana and Doyen stood before the assembled Galactic Council to make a joint announcement. Hana's telepathic abilities had not recovered significantly, but she had adapted. She could read human body language as easily as she once read thoughts. She could speak with emotional nuance that did not require telepathic broadcasting. She had become, in a strange way, more human. "We have an announcement," Doyen said to the Council. "Something that symbolizes the new era we are entering together." Hana stepped forward, placing a hand on her stomach. "I am pregnant, human and Valen, carrying a child that should be impossible by every biological standard. But life finds a way, especially when supported by the technology and cooperation we've developed together." The announcement caused immediate excitement. Scientists wanted to study the pregnancy. Diplomats saw it as the ultimate symbol of interspecies unity. But for Hana and Doyen, it was simply the next chapter in their unexpected journey together. As the council session continued with discussions of the hybrid,